Hi, everybody. It's Maxine Taylor with my monthly Trumpology report for February 2019. Get this a little better organized. If you have not yet viewed my special Trumpology report entitled Will Trump Be Reelected? I think you'll find it very, very interesting. Now I'm going to give you the monthly report for Trump and the United States. It's always very interesting to me to see how they sync up and what each one has to say. Of course, for Trump, it's one person, even though he is commander-in-chief. For the United States, deals with millions of people. And so the United States chart and forecast are both interpreted in a more mundane fashion. So let me start. Here we go. Got to have my notes and my glasses to see what I'm supposed to say. Okay. We start off the month with both the sun and Mercury. The sun is this is for Trump. I'm so sorry. This is Trump's chart. The sun represents our ego and the center of our life. And so with the sun in Aquarius, the whole world is thinking truly in a more humanitarian way, although Aquarius does march to its own drummer. Mercury, our conscious mind, is in Aquarius also. And so we're thinking along the same lines. Humanity, being a friend to people, and at the same time, being an individualist who marches to his own drumbeat. Venus, and both the sun and Mercury move into Pisces. The sun moves into it on the 18th, Mercury moves into it on the 10th. And so there's a certain amount of wishful thinking or idealism that can come into play, as well as a certain amount of obfuscation, particularly when we're dealing with a mundane chart of a country and a president who is in charge of that country. Now, Venus has 3 days in Sagittarius, and then it moves into practical, logical, hardworking Capricorn. And Mars, wherever Mars is what we throw ourselves into. It's what we fight with and fight for. Well, on Valentine's Day, which is ruled by Venus and love. And by the way, go to my website and check out my new special, Where the Bleep is Cupid. Okay, Venus. Mars moves into Taurus on Valentine's Day. Aries, from whence it cometh or cameth, do it now. Out of my way or the highway. Taurus, let's take it slow and easy. Let's enjoy the view. Let's indulge ourselves. And yeah, let's talk about money. So I'm going to start with Trump's chart, starting with the sun. Now, in February, the sun it starts in his 6th house of work, health, and service. With that 6th house being triggered, we're dealing with the people who work for him. We're dealing with his job. And of course, the sun is the king. The sun is the center of our solar system. And so he is going to have to be the king in his own domain. On the 18th of the month, the sun moves into the 7th house. Now, this is a very interesting house. In a personal chart, it deals with marriage. It deals with partnerships. It also deals with contracts. It also deals with divorce. So it's marriage, divorce. It's getting along and suing one another. So we've got the sun here, and this brings to light our open enemies. That's the 7th house. So this is a very interesting place for the sun right now for Trump. Now we have a new moon on February 3rd, and it's sitting here right next to the sun. On the new moon, that's when things start moving forward. The new moon on the 3rd says his job, his daily activities, the people who work for him, this is what is triggered. And the full moon is incredibly powerful because the full moon on the 19th of this month is in 0 Virgo 42. Look at your own birth chart. The new moon is in 15 Aquarius 45. Look for where 15 Aquarius is in your birth chart. That's the area of life where things start moving forward. On the 19th, the full moon, which is when things come to a head, will be in, let's round up and say 1 degree of Virgo. In Trump's chart, this full moon sits right smack dab on his ascendant. And what does it bring to a head? Himself. Perhaps his ego, because he has a Leo ascendant ruled by the sun, which of course is in his natal 10th house of career. And so he, on this full moon, on the 19th, says, now remember, this is the day after the sun moves into his 7th house of open enemies, of competition, of lawsuits, lower courts. This is him saying, I am doing what I want, when I want, how I want, because I want. And he's doing it in an explosive way because that's how the full moon manifests. Okay, there are a couple of other things I want to mention, taken straight from my notes. When the sun is on his 7th cusp, it opposes his ascendant. So other people are calling the shots. The 7th house deals with the lower courts, with open enemies, with any contracts. And so they call the shots, the other people. Now, the sun on the 12th through the 14th is quincunx, meaning it's making an adjustment to Saturn and Venus in his 11th house. Let me remind those of you who don't study astrology what this means, because otherwise it gets very confusing. The 11th house deals with friends. It deals with groups. As president, the group that he's dealing with could very easily be Congress. Saturn, serious, responsible. Venus, love, money. He is adjusting his relationship with Congress, with his friends, probably because so many of his the people he knows have been indicted and are telling Mueller, giving Mueller information. Saturn also rules walls. And so there is some adjustment that he may be making, and I'm not finished with this Saturn-Venus thing. I've got a little more to share with you. Some adjustment that he's making, perhaps in his demands for the wall with Congress. You think? And Venus rules, among other things, his midheaven, his public image. And so he's shifting his public image. This will be from the 12th to the 14th. However, the full moon is on the 19th. And the question I've been asked by a lot of people is, well, when the government had been shut down and we have been having a 3-week resurrection of work, and the government is back in business, but it's going to, those 3 weeks are going to be over on the 15th. So will he declare a state of emergency? Will he do another shutdown? I don't know how he's going to handle this, but he is absolutely going to do what he wants. He's going to act independently. Stay tuned. I can't predict what he's going to do. And that's what his chart says. He's unpredictable. He is predictable in his unpredictability. Make sense? Okay, let's talk now about Mercury. Mercury is what we think about and talk about. It's a lot of talking, a lot of communication. It's not like Mars that gets angry. This is more cerebral. And it starts out, of course, as I mentioned, in Aquarius and moves into dreamy Pisces. It starts in his sixth house of employees, subordinates, his work. On the ninth, it moves into that seventh house of contracts, litigation, open enemies, partnerships. It could be that Melania wants more of his attention or wants things from him. This can involve talking about lawsuits. Remember, Mercury talks about it and thinks about it. But when the sun enters the seventh house, that's when it can happen. Okay. On the 24th, Mercury moves into that eighth house of secrets and other people's money. And so there is a lot of thinking on his part about joint finances, about money he has borrowed. This is also the house of taxes. This is the money that comes out of litigations as well. This is all hidden. Well, there it is right there. It's not hidden. The details are hidden, but there it is. Now, getting back to that Saturn-Venus, when Mercury crosses his seventh house, this is when other people start telling, it's in opposition to the ascendant, him. And so that's when he starts hearing about, let's sit down, let's talk about things, let's negotiate. And on the 6th and 7th, Mercury is quincunx Saturn and Venus. So once again, he's adjusting his stand on the wall for the sake of his public image. That's one thing. He is also readjusting his friendships because a lot of his friends have been indicted and have been sharing information. He may be rethinking his Christmas card list. I think that's a really good way of putting it. Okay, let's talk about Venus first. Venus is love, it is money, it's happiness. It's in his fourth house. But on the 3rd, it moves into his fifth of children. And Venus is the lesser benefic. It brings happiness and joy wherever it goes. However, it sits on his vertex, his karmic role in life. And in the fifth house is sex, fifth house is sports, it's all kind of fun and games, and it's children. And so his role with his children, perhaps his role, I don't imagine that the women who have accused him of sexual improprieties will resurface now, because when they surfaced the first time, they were only there for a short period of time, and then we never heard from them again. They kind of went off of the map. So I think this would deal more with his children, gambling, speculation. And so there can be a certain amount of speculation, buying up of properties or just taking a chance. Now, Venus is in opposition to Saturn and Venus. An opposition pulls away. It's not an adjustment, it's an out and out pulling away from his friends who may be holding him back, Saturn, from getting the wall, getting what he wants, pulling away from his friends. Let me see if there's anything else. On the 18th, Venus, I didn't put this in the chart because it was starting to get kind of busy. Venus squares Neptune, and so this is a lot of idealism and wishful thinking about his own money. And then after the 18th, from the 22nd through the 25th, that's when Venus pulls away from Congress, old friends, land. Saturn rules land. It's all of his real estate stuff that he may be working with his pals. Okay, that's one. Then there's Mars. And Mars is very powerful wherever it is, that's what we throw ourselves into. It's in his ninth house of foreign relations and foreign travel. So he'll probably be dealing with, well, I think I had heard that he was going to have another meeting with Kim Jong-un, this type of thing. Wherever Mars is, that's what we fight with and fight for. So he is fighting with foreign powers, fighting for foreign powers, both. Interestingly enough, Mars, from the 3rd till the 8th, squares Saturn and Venus. And so this is him fighting with his friends, with Congress, to get what he wants in the way of money, Venus, public image, Venus rules his midheaven, and land, and the wall. Now, I added one more planet, which I don't normally include, but I just had to. Jupiter. Jupiter is the great benefic. Wherever it is, it blesses you, except when it might not, because Jupiter is a lot of. Those of you who study astrology know that Jupiter rules abundance. And so if it sits on something that's not right in your chart, there can be an abundance, an expansion of that. Okay. Jupiter is sitting in Trump's 4th house of home, family, real estate. And you notice it's sitting on the south node, which I talked about in my special report, and the moon. The south node is traditionally that which we have mastered in past lives. And if we spend too much time there, it can drain us. The moon is what we are instinctively drawn to: home, family, real estate. And so this deals with his real estate holdings. There is an expansion, but the south node can drain that area. And there can be a change moon in that area. The reason I'm including Jupiter here is not just because it's sitting on that home, family, real estate area, but it's opposing his Uranus and Sun in his 10th house, his public image as a leader, Sun, and as a rebel, Uranus. And so this emphasis on his home and family, on his real estate. Can you include the wall? Probably so. Because Jupiter is quincunx Saturn. The Sun, if I remember correctly, was quincunx Saturn, his friends. He's making a change with his friends in order to accommodate his family. I think we'll probably hear a whole lot more from his family, from his children, particularly when, not so much right now, later on in the year, Jupiter moves into his 5th house. So once again, we've got a lot going on here that is going to be coming to light, as we know. All right, that's Trump. There is so much more I can say. And I know a lot of you have done your own astrology work as well, so you know there's a lot going on. Now what I want to do is talk about the United States chart for February. Excuse me, guys. Trying to get organized here. Okay. And we want, yes. Chart number 1 is the chart of the sun's path and the new moon and the full moon. On the 3rd, February 3rd, the new moon is sitting on the midheaven of the United States chart. By the 7th, it's sitting on the moon of the United States chart. Now, wherever the sun is, that's the area of life that comes alive. So, the 10th house in a mundane chart, which the United States chart is a mundane chart, represents the party in power It rules the president, the presidency, and our public image, the country's public image in the world. You might say, well, gosh, the sun up there looks really good because it is the giver of life. And that's the truth. And I think the sun up here in the 10th house is probably an indication of the Republicans, because they're the party in power, getting their act together. Haven't you noticed that people are throwing their hat in the ring? They're announcing for office way earlier than normally. This is also our public image. Now, when the sun sits on the moon, it's very powerful. The moon represents change. And so there is a change that is made in our public image. You might say, well, is there a change being made in our president? Yes, that's entirely possible. He may change his approach in some way, but it is our reputation as a country with other countries and his reputation. Now, the new moon is a sign of beginnings, and so this is really kicking it in on all those areas. The full moon on the 19th is when things come to a head, and they come to a head in the 4th house. Now, the 4th house deals with real estate. This means the holdings, real estate holdings of the people. We have had incredible problems because of our weather, with mudslides, with fire, with snow now. This full moon in the 4th house activates the party out of power. And you might say, well, that would be the Democrats. That's true, because it brings the whole Democratic party to a head. Remember, the new moon is when the energy starts. The full moon is when it explodes and comes to a head. The 4th house deals with domestic affairs, all kind of domestic affairs. Are we talking about, you name it, housing, crime, although that's indicated elsewhere as well. But it's everything dealing with our security. The weather, I don't have to tell you that, farmers, builders, crops, and seniors. And so there's emphasis on this, probably coming from the Democratic Party, which is the 4th house, as people step forward and announce their platforms. All right? Chart number 2. I have so many notes here. I'm trying to keep it so simple, and I'm not sure if I'm doing that. I hope I'm being really clear. Ask me questions on YouTube or wherever if you have questions. All right, let's talk about Mercury. Mercury is what we think about and talk about. Once again, on the 3rd, which is the new moon, Mercury emphasizes the Republican Party and the president. There's a lot of communication. And it's with the moon, there's a change in our public image. There's a change in the Republican Party's image. And there can be a change in the communication that comes from Trump. On the 17th, Mercury moves into the 11th house. Now, the 11th house deals with Congress, congressmen, legislation, the Treasury. It deals with our friends also. So there's probably going to be more conversation, more things to talk about in Congress during this time. Mercury doesn't bring about change. Mercury talks about it, okay? So that's it for Mercury. Now, let me keep on going here. Okay. I'm going to start with Mars. Mars is what we fight with and fight for. It's what comes first to us. It is sitting in the 11th house of Congress. Well, you know, they've been arguing for quite a while. On the 4th and 5th, it moves into our 12th house. Now, the 12th house deals with our hidden enemies. They can be the enemies in our own house, so to speak. The 12th house deals with prison, so we could be dealing with prison reform. Hidden enemies, as I said, spies, bribery. Hello, there it is right there. Hospitals, crime of all sorts that is hidden. This is all going on behind the scenes, but it is of prime importance with Mars there. Charitable institutions, if there's any funny business going on, that may come to light when Mars enters the first house. We'll see. It deals with welfare, all types of welfare. And so this is where our energy is. Lots of preparation, as you can imagine, with people throwing their hats in the ring for president. There's a lot of behind the scenes activities going on. And sorry to say, they can fall under those categories that I mentioned. Now, Venus, the planet of love, the planet of beauty, the planet of happiness, starts off in the 7th house of open enemies, negotiations. So things can move along quite nicely there. On the 4th, Venus enters our 8th house of the treasurer, debts, taxes, losses, secrets of all kinds. And so Venus adds a note of love and a happy note to all of this, so that if any secrets are come to life, they're not going to be terrible or horrible. They'll be presented in hopefully, I don't know how you present debts and losses in a positive way, but this can mean more money from our allies, from our open frenemies. Let's call them frenemies. So this would be good. This would be very good, since this deals with money from other sources. Now, on the 22nd, Venus enters our 9th house. This deals with the upper courts, the Supreme Court, foreign travel, higher education, religion, world trade. And Venus, on the 28th of February, sits on Pluto. Never underestimate Pluto. Pluto is all or nothing. It rules nuclear energy. It's one of the things that deal with nuclear energy. And Venus on Pluto indicates that there can be something very positive that comes from our foreign relations relating to nuclear stuff. So let me look and see if I've covered everything here. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention. When Venus is in our 8th house of money and debts and all of that, I didn't write it here, but I want you to imagine that our Venus, our natal Venus in the United States chart, Jupiter and the Sun, the two benefics and the giver of life in our 2nd house, bring the United States people income, positive income. Venus in the 8th house of other people's money is in opposition to that, so it takes away from our income. I don't care what is said, the final outcome is that there can be personal loss on some level from income. That would be from the 5th till the 14th of February. Let me see if there's, and I think that's, Mars will square Pluto, which triggers arguing with our, with foreign countries, foreign leaders over principles, and it squares Mercury in the 3rd house. I didn't put that there because it gets complex. The T cross then empties into the 6th house of workers, of health, of civil servants, jobs, the police. Mars is war. Mars is anger in a mundane chart. It is passion, but in a mundane chart, when you have Mars squaring Pluto, this can be problematic because of the fact that Pluto does deal with total change. It can be, it's an all or nothing planet. And as I said, it deals with nuclear power. And with Mercury squared also, there can be communication, but the workers are going to feel the results of that. So you might be asking now, well, are we going to have another shutdown? With that full moon on Trump's ascendant, for me, all bets are off. I can't tell if he's going to assert his ego in that way or in another way. But make no mistake about it, with a full moon on your ascendant, you are saying, I'm doing what I want, when I want, how I want, because I can. So, I hope this has been helpful and informative, and things are coming to a head, aren't they? So, if anything else turns up during the month, I will be back and I'll share with you the information that I have. I think at this time of our lives, I need to contribute a little bit more so that you have a more detailed picture of what's going on, even though it's very difficult to know how the president is going to express these aspects. I can give you enough information so that you're prepared, so to speak. Well, not even so to speak, to be prepared. So, dear friends, thank you so much for your support, for watching my Trumpology reports. I've been doing them for a couple of years now. I'm so grateful for you. And I thank you, and my blessing for you, for everybody, is that the stars shine brightly on you and yours. Bye for now.